Everyone wants to take their business, their skills, to the next level. Small and mid-sized business owners have exceptional insight into how to do this. They endure and thrive because they find ways to overcome the challenges that come their way, and they can teach us valuable lessons to apply to our own companies and lives. Stephen Nooner, founder and owner of Alkali, a company with a unique process that helps businesses more effectively buy and manage their insurance programs. And Bob Gibbons, builder of Riata Commercial Realty, a real estate advisor and tenant advocate, are two prominent Metroplex businessmen who, along with their weekly guests, will ask their and your probing questions, finding impactful solutions that will help you reach for the next level. Here are your hosts, Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons.
Welcome, everyone, to The Next Level, Conversations that Propel Business. I'm your host, Stephen Nooner.
And this is Bob Gibbons, and we're glad you guys are with us today. And we are excited because our guest today is Paula Lambert, and she is the owner, founder, creator of great cheeses, and she owns the Mozzarella Company based in Deep Ellum. She started this 35 years ago. We'll learn all about what that was about, and she now has lots of employees, makes tons of different kinds of cheeses, and you can find her online at mozzco.com.
Very impressive.
Right?
No notes. Yeah, you
no
got
notes.
it.
I know.
Awesome.
Welcome. Glad you're here, Paula.
They're on
Thanks.
Welcome.
Thanks.
So we like to start off every show with the wisdom of others. And so today I had a quote that I just heard this week, and it resonated with me, so I wrote it down. And it was, entrepreneurs are the only artists that use both their left and right brain. They have the soul of an artist, but their medium or canvas is business. And that was by Dan Sullivan, who's a business entrepreneurial coach.
Well, I like that.
That was kind of neat.
Interesting. So left and right brain. 'Cause, yeah, you often think of artists as being only one or business people being the other. But,
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes the ultimate creators are those that are creating a company because that creates a lot of things. It creates a product or a service, creates jobs. I mean, there's so many great things that creates.
And there's a creativity and genius, and a lot of times people think, he was saying that a lot of people get trained, and we think of creativity as like art or music or, but seeing something that doesn't exist and then going out and trying to build it or invent it or create a company around it, that's a pretty creative process.
Well, and what cracks me up is that so often whenever you see something that somebody's created, it's kind of like, well, of course, why didn't I think of that?
The worst is when I've thought of it and didn't do anything about it.
I've seen that too.
What do you think?
Well, I was always worried about somebody copying me. I was, somebody else is going to make mozzarella on the next block.
Is that not the greatest compliment?
Well, I was worried about maintaining my market share.
I bet.
How long did you worry about that?
Well, I worried about it for at least 15 or 20 years.
Wow. And what was the turning point for that?
I guess I just gave up worrying.
Didn't do any good.
Well, yeah, it wasn't going to change anything, was it?
No.
Well, let's go back to the beginning. So you tell us the story about how you got the idea of starting a cheese company in Deep Ellum. That doesn't seem like the logical, normal thing that a girl would do.
Well, I had gone to Italy when I was 25 and lived there until I was 30, and I loved Italy. And so I came back to Dallas and I got married, and my husband had a business of his own. He was a landscape architect, and I used to love to help him at the office, and I learned how to do the books, and I learned all these different things, and I did volunteer work. And every time I would get really good at something at his office, he would hire someone to replace me. He wouldn't even tell me. I mean, she has your job. And so, then I had to go find something else to do. So I decided, okay, this is enough. I have to have a business of my own because if he has one, I can have one. So then I decided that I would do what I love the most, make it about food and make it about Italy. And then I just came up with the idea after a while of this fresh mozzarella and learned how to make it.
So what were you doing in Italy for 5 years when you were living over there?
I was studying Italian and art history.
For 5 years.
Wow.
You're after my daughter's heart. My daughter spent a year in Italy in college, her first year in college. And
Worst year of Bob's life.
Why was it so bad?
He missed
Because
her.
I missed her.
Oh,
I mean, she
didn't
was
you go
my-
visit?
Well, I did, but she was my baby. I was depressed whenever I was a true empty nester at that point. Boy, I was having a hard time of it. But going over there to visit her was great. And what was cracking me up is that she got the I don't know what the right word is, the pronunciation religion about pronouncing everything perfectly. And in fact, she became a waitress when she came back in an Italian restaurant.
Oh, that's really needed.
And it was funny because they were going through training. She was going through training, and they adopted her as the official pronunciation instructor.
Yes, bruschetta instead of bruschetta.
Exactly, and everything else anyway. But so in fact, we were talking about this earlier. I would say mozzarella, but you say it,
Mozzarella.
and that's
Mozzarella.
correct.
That's the way we say it in Italy.
Mozzarella.
Mozzarella.
But you're not doing the mozzarella.
Well, I could.
You could. All right, so you decided you wanted to start your own company. You'd been learning things over in Italy, but why cheese?
Well, because I loved it. I remember the first day I tasted mozzarella and tomato salad in Italy, and I kept asking the waiter, and I couldn't even speak Italian. This was before I lived there. What is this? And he said, it's cheese, this mozzarella, this white, soft, delicious thing. And I said, well, it can't be cheese. It wasn't cheese in America. So I just loved it. And I love that salad. It's called a caprese salad because it's mozzarella and tomato. And it was invented on the Isle of Capri. That's why they call it caprese. And so, I loved it. And I thought, well, I'll make a product that no one has and no one in the United States. And I'll have my mozzarella that I love so much.
So how do you go from something, I love something, right? And this is delicious and I love it, to I'm going to create a product. I'm going to make this. I mean, because when I eat something, I don't usually analyze how it's made. I'm just enjoying the experience.
Well, I had no idea how it was made when I came up with the idea. I just wanted to have it. And I knew that in Italy, you eat the mozzarella as fresh as you can, like the day it's made or the day after it's made. And I heard from an Italian restaurateur in Dallas that he was going to open a restaurant and he was going to fly in mozzarella from Italy, and it was going to go to a distributor in San Francisco, and then it was going to come to Dallas. And I thought,
goodness.
I can beat that because I can make it here and it'll be fresh the way it's supposed to be. So then I learned how to make the cheese, but then I had to educate the entire market in Dallas because no one had ever heard of a perishable cheese that lasted for 7 days. And I mean, it was hard.
So how did you start learning it? I mean, did you go back to Italy to learn it?
Yes, I went back to Italy to learn how to make mozzarella, and then I brought an Italian cheese professor to Dallas who taught us in our factory.
Sorry, a cheese professor.
Oh, of course, a cheese professor.
Oh, that's not. That should be obvious to me.
They have there's high education programs around cheese. I only know this because someone on my team, her husband we got him this hat because he finally got this, not won it, but earned this designation cheese, and so I got him a cheese head,
a wedge.
We're trying to get him a cheese head hat. Yeah.
Well, in Italy, they have trade schools, to teach people how to become cheesemakers. And there's one in northern Italy, and it's if you go to that school, then you get licenses, and you can go and work in cheese factories. And so I found out about this cheese school and went up there and met with them, and they said that they would send a professor to me to teach me to make the cheese as soon as I had the factory built.
Oh,
After you had the factory built.
And they thought, it was going to be real industry, like a gigantic place. And I was thinking it was going to be teeny tiny in Deep Ellum. I didn't know. And so they sent a lowly cheese professor instead of a big deal cheese professor. But he still knew how to make mozzarella. So he taught us here in Dallas. And it was great. I mean, we knew what we were doing.
well, that's a huge risk, though, to go to Italy to learn how to do this, then come back here and set up a factory, bring this guy over here to teach everybody. I mean, you made a huge investment before you made a sale.
Well, another
I
thing
assume.
was I didn't do any market research. I was afraid because I didn't know how to make the cheese. I had to get the man here to make the cheese, and I had to build a factory to make it in. But I had the faith.
Is that blind faith or is that just
No,
faith?
real faith and true determination.
Well, that's amazing then. So, all right, let's fast forward. You make your first batch. What do you do with it?
Well, I got to know the stew pot really well down at the First
homeless shelter?
Presbyterian Church, yes. And we were taking it down there. No, I would go out, I'd make it, and then I'd go out to the different shops or restaurants and try to sell the cheese and show it to them.
And who bit first, so to speak?
Well, there were a couple of places. Marty's, which was the liquor store on Oak Lawn, which is where Goody Goody is now.
Okay.
And there was an Italian shop over on Lower Greenville Avenue called De Palma. And those were my first. And then, but I had a rule. You had to buy 5 pounds of mozzarella to get it. And so that was 10 balls. And so, I go and sell it to them, and then I go back the next day and say, you ready for some more? No, we haven't sold but 1 ball. And so, it was not moving. And I decided I would try to focus on restaurants. And so Alberto Lombardi had a new Italian restaurant on Hall Street, and different people. But my biggest claim to fame was I went over to the Mansion, and the Mansion was being run by the 21 Club from New York, and they had mozzarella and tomato salad on the menu. But they didn't have the real Italian mozzarella in Dallas like they had in New York. So they were using Kraft block mozzarella, slicing it thinly and folding it artistically.
Oh, wow.
So
Fooling you.
I said, you need this. And, the Mansion had just opened. And so anyway, I was lucky because the chefs had never heard of fresh mozzarella. But the general manager of the Mansion just walked through the kitchen as I was there with my little bucket of mozzarella balls. And he said to them, that's what you need. This is the fresh mozzarella we need in this salad. And so that's how they became my customer. And then when the Mansion was my customer, things were good.
Was that the game changer?
Yes, and they've been my customer for 35 years.
Wow.
That's
and
incredible.
then, Stephen Piles and Dean Faring came along, and then they became my customers, and they took the cheese all over the country because as they became famous as the founding fathers of Southwestern cuisine, they had to show off their Southwestern cheese.
Well, and there's such a huge movement of sourcing locally now.
Yes.
Has that impacted you?
Yes, that's very good. And then it's like, what is local? Is local Texas or is local Dallas? In Italy now, they're
Or
using
just the U.S.
they're
now?
using a phrase 0 kilometers for local.
Wow.
So that's really local.
That
Wow.
is extremely local.
like growing
farm to market, or farm to table, I guess they call
So
it.
we do that. There's a restaurant right next door to us called Local. Have you heard of it? It's so good. A great
I
chef,
don't know that I have.
Tracy Miller. And so when they come and buy the cheese, that's really local.
That's
Next
exciting.
door.
So these great chefs become your evangelists in a way.
Yes.
And do they put that on the menu, saying where they get it?
Well, at first they told me that they wanted to put Paula's mozzarella, and I was so embarrassed. I said, you just can't do that. I just can't. If my friends came in here and saw my name on the menu, I would be so embarrassed. And now I would beg them to do it.
All right.
Well, we're going to go to a break, but when we come back, does Paula still sell cheese out of a bucket? Stick around.
And now, Confessions of a Recovering Landlord.
This is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty, and I am your recovering landlord. After 20 years as a landlord, I now use that experience only for the benefit of companies that lease or buy office buildings and warehouses. Today's confession: knowledge is power. We all negotiate from a position of power and strength, or at least we want to. In any negotiation, the party with the most knowledge probably has the upper hand, and landlords count on this being the case whenever you're negotiating a lease, because most landlords are professional real estate investors and they hire professional leasing agents and property managers. Landlords are in the market every day negotiating leases, while tenants probably only negotiate 1, maybe 2 leases every few years. So tenants feel outgunned. Don't let landlords have all the power. As a former landlord for 20 years, I understand how landlords think and what motivates them. So let me put that knowledge and experience to work on your side of the negotiation. To learn more, contact me at TexasTenantRep.com. Again, that's TexasTenantrep.com. rep.com.
Have you started making plans to take your business to the next level in 2016? Hi, I'm Stephen Nooner, founder and CEO of Alkali. We have a trademark process called the Empowered Advantage that enables CEOs, business owners, and entrepreneurs to more effectively buy and manage their insurance. Before sitting down to make your plans for the new year, here are just a few things to consider. Would you say that you have an actual insurance strategy, one that you can articulate, or have you just purchased a policy here and there over the years? If you have an insurance strategy, was it discussed under the pressure of a renewal deadline or considered earlier in the year to avoid fire drill decision making? If your answer was no to either of these questions, then you may not have the right partner on your team. Visit alkaliservices.com to contact us and take the next step to a bigger and better future. Hi, this is Stephen Nooner, CEO and founder of Alkali. Tune in this week. Bob will talk about square feet. We're back with Paula Lambert, founder and CEO of the Mozzarella Company.
Very good.
If you want to learn more, please visit mozzco.com.
Well, so we were talking before the break about you, how you got started, how you got to selling, and Nooner here made a crack about whether or not you're still selling with a bucket, with a bunch of cheese balls in a bucket. I'm going to go out on a limb and bet that that's not happening now.
Well, it was a tiny little pail, actually.
The bucket, you're still doing that, just a bigger
But one
bucket?
of the things is, the reason I said that is that mozzarella traditionally is sold in water, in a governing liquid. And so that's the classic way. And so that you've got to have a bucket. We now use vacuum sealed bags, but they're full of water for that particular type of mozzarella.
Where do you got, where all are you distributed now?
We sell all over the country.
Okay.
So where would I find it here locally?
Here locally, Whole Foods, Central Market, Tom Thumb, Market Street, Scardello. Do you know about Scardello?
I don't.
It's a fabulous little cheese shop on Oak Lawn, and they also have a shop down in the new downtown farmers market.
Oh, nice.
They sell
yeah.
a lot of local cheeses.
Yeah, I've been at that new farmer's market. I don't even know what they call it exactly now, that shed that has all the different stuff in it. That's a cool place.
There's another great company down there called Stocks and Bondi. And it's a girl who makes stock, which is soup. Her name is Joanne Bondi. Stocks and Bondi.
I've seen that there. I was wondering. So when I go by any of the grocery stores you mentioned, I'll see the little plastic tubs of container with little mozzarella balls with spices and up, but it's in olive oil, I think.
Well, that's just another way to prepare it.
Is that sort of the wrong way?
Well,
is the purist going to say it's got to be in the water?
No, you can do it all sorts of different ways.
Okay.
So I've got to ask, what is it? Am I really eating mozzarella when I get the fried ones from Sam's Club out of the freezer bag?
I think you would be. Well, the word mozzarella is a standard of identity. You can't call something mozzarella unless it's mozzarella.
I just the price is good and it tastes great at a party. I'm talking about the little fried cheese sticks or whatever.
Yeah, a little breaded thing.
Just was wondering.
Sam's would not call it something it's not.
Yes, of course not.
Okay, so you're in a bunch of different restaurants now. You're growing the business. When do you decide that you want to branch out beyond mozzarella?
Well, I had to because I wasn't selling enough to cover my overhead. So I thought that if I made other types of cheese, I would be able to sell more than one kind of cheese to each customer. And so that was my whole plan. So there was no one else making cheeses like I was in the United States. And the universities that specialized in, had cheese schools, they were not making European-style cheeses. So I had to go back to Italy on a business trip.
Wow.
Air quotes, business trip.
No, I learned how to make all these different kinds of cheeses. I went all over Italy, to all these different towns where I knew people, and I would go and I'd say, do you know anyone that owns a cheese factory? I need to go to a cheese factory in this part of Italy. And they would get me an introduction, and I would go, and the people would be so open and kind to me, and I would go in and watch them and take notes. And then I came back and from those notes invented all these different cheeses. So through the years now, I have had people come from all over the world to Dallas to learn to make cheese from me. They've come
Wow.
from Russia, and they've come from other Eastern European countries, and in the Far East. I mean, and it's been great. I mean, that I could give back like the people gave to me.
Yeah. So that's really, really neat. And it's so just they were just completely generous. They weren't like, oh, we're going to have competition because.
No, they were all nice.
So how many different kinds of cheeses do you make now?
Now we make about 30 or 35 because we're 35 years old.
Of course, Baskin Robbins. And how many different countries would you say those?
Well, I make
originated?
a Greek type cheese like feta, so that would be Greece. And then we have from Mexico, I make queso blanco, queso fresco, things like that. From France, we make a soft rind ripened cheese, and then from Italy. So we've got these different cheeses.
And did you go to all those countries to learn how to make those?
Of course.
So you just like to travel.
I love to travel, and I have a travel business too.
What?
You do?
Yes.
What is that? Tell me about that.
Well, it's called Viaggi Deliziosi, which means delicious trips. And I take people to Italy to stay in a villa for a week, and I teach them cooking because I love to travel, and I love Italy. And I also take them to Ireland.
Wow.
That's incredible.
That does sound like fun. Maybe I can be a tour guide or
Sous chef.
sous chef. Okay, just stand in the corner and do what I'm told.
At least she put you in busboy. I mean, sous chef.
I have been a busboy at IHOP, so I'm qualified.
Oh,
something.
are you? It's like that TV show where the CEO goes in
Incognito?
undercover.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. Not if you put me out of my element.
So over 35 years, like what's changed in your business? I mean, and what has been the same?
Well, first of all, there are so many small cheese factories in the United States, you would have no idea. Around Dallas, years ago, there were 14. And just between here and Austin and East Texas around. When I started, I was like the only one in this whole part of the country.
Wow.
And there were a couple. There was one girl who started before I did in California with goat cheese, and one person in Massachusetts, and a man in Illinois, and we were the first ones making what we call artisanal cheeses in the United States. And now there are 800 or 1,000 of these cheese factories in the United States. There's a fabulous organization called the American Cheese Society that has competitions and does a lot of education. And it's not only for cheese makers, it's also for cheese retailers, cheese professors, all kinds of people. I mean, it's grown like you couldn't believe. At one point, they said that cheese was going to grow like wine grew, but we were just 15 years behind. Well, now, I mean, we've almost caught up. It's amazing.
So with all that competition, that's created competition, but it sounds like the consumption has escalated dramatically as well.
And it's happened worldwide. I mean, there are a lot in South America. There used to be only cheese industrial plants, not small cheesemakers. Now they have small cheesemakers, artisanal specialty cheesemakers.
And so with all of that change, I mean, it sounds like you were on the forefront of kind of a market that exploded. What has stayed the same for you throughout?
My little company.
Yeah.
When your location, you're still in
I've been
Deep
in
Ellum.
the same place for 35 years. I planted a tree out in front of the cheese factory when I started. Well, my husband, the landscape architect, gave it to me. And so the tree grew and grew, and then they came down Deep Ellum, down Elm Street, and they renovated the whole street. And I went to the city of Dallas and I said, what are your plans how are you going to save my tree? They said, we're not saving your tree, lady. We're cutting it down. We're making a new street. And so then I fought and I got permission to keep my tree, and it's the only tree that remained on Elm Street in that whole renovation.
Wow.
And so I'm
amazing.
very proud of it.
I guess. I hope it's not I hope it's a long-lived tree, live
Oh,
tree,
the
whatever.
city arborist even told me it was not even a good tree, and I said, "But it is.
What kind
It's
of-
my tree.
what kind
It's-
of tree is it?
It's a sweet gum.
Oh, okay.
If you drive down Elm Street, you just look for the little cheese shop by the tree, and you'll find
You know,
it.
I've seen your building, but I can't say that I've paid that much attention to the trees. I'll have to go by again.
You must.
All right. So, what are the big things that you would advise somebody else thinking about getting into a food service business? You know, a food creation, manufacturing business. What are the things that you'd say are the most important things to focus on?
For a food business, you must follow all the regulations, and there are so many. I mean, there's the FDA, the USDA, the city of Dallas, the state of Texas, all of whom have regulations, and you need to know what the regulations are and follow everything. I mean, there are inspectors, there are all kinds of people, and you must follow the rules.
And what about, I mean, like when you started the factory, you had to build the whole thing out. Is that still the way things are today, where you have to build the whole thing out before you can get your licensing or your whatever?
Yes. You have to
Wow.
do everything.
So there's still a big risk.
Yes, there is a big risk, but you can start out small.
I've seen a lot of places where they have these fractional commercial kitchens. Have you seen those pop up? And what
Well,
do you
I
think of
wanted to
those?
found one of those years ago, and I didn't do that. But it's great because that really gives people a chance. If you're making jams or jellies or pickles or bread or all these things, you can go into a fully licensed commercial kitchen and make your product in there on a timeshare basis. And that's really a good way to start in the food business.
What's next for you?
Oh, I don't know. You know, I wrote 2 cookbooks, and I love that. And then the cookbooks led into teaching cooking classes all over the United States, and then that led to classes in France and in Italy, and I love that. And so I don't know. I can't wait to find out what it is.
But now, one other thing I think I read that you knew Julia Child.
Oh, yes. And I met her through different organizations that I was a member of, and she turned out to be the most wonderful, thoughtful, caring person, and she loved young people, and she was a great inspiration.
I was in the Smithsonian, excuse me, the Smithsonian a couple of weeks ago, and you know, in the American History Museum, they have her kitchen replica set up. It's kind of cool.
And I was in her kitchen when I stayed with her in Boston. And she told me in that kitchen to make the English muffins. And I went, ooh, what am I going to do? Should I cut them with a fork or not?
Well, Paula, thanks so much for being our guest today. We've really
Thank you.
enjoyed it.
Yes.
For our listeners, please go to mozzco.com to learn more. Please buy her cheese at all the places she mentioned. And if you want to learn more about the show,
Trips. Go check out nextlevelshow.com, or if you're a podcaster, you can search.
thenextlevelshow.com, wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, etc. And we'll be back next week with another great guest.
Have a great week.
You have been listening to The Next Level, Conversations That Propel Business with Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons. Join us every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. for more prolific conversations that will take your business to the next level.